Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Good morning, everyone from the West Coast. It's Richard Diaz, your host, and we have Erica Gratton, our in-house trail diva, with us again today.
Good morning. Hello from sunny SoCal.
I promised everybody I'd get rid of that stupid intro, and I just haven't had time to do it. So once again, I find myself apologizing.
Well, at this point, it kind of just goes hand in hand. It gives us something to poke fun about first thing.
There you go. There you go. Well, you know, it's kind of my MO. It's just me and like that and typos are my two things. Apologizing and making typographical errors when I write. But,
well, good thing we're on the airwaves. Nobody would have known that had you not divulged that, Richard.
Yeah,
so now we know another dirty little secret about you.
I have to tell you, Erica, we've been on a roll. We've had some really, really good interviews over the last couple shows.
Yes.
You know, we had a tremendous amount of response from the interview we did with Craig Virgin, which was it was fantastic. I mean, truly an American legend where running is concerned.
Yes, agreed. Red, white, and blue all the way through.
I guess it's kind of an unsung hero, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, you know, it's, you know, I hate to say it, and we had talked about this, but sometimes people don't get that notoriety unless they've passed on, and it's unfortunate, but true. I mean, right when we were alluding to Steve Prefontaine, I mean, Craig rivaled him. Wouldn't you agree? If not,
sure,
he passed him. But you know, Craig's alive and kicking in a suburb of Chicago. And
you know, today, and by the way, it is partly our responsibility to bring these people to light. I think.
Yeah.
But
yes.
Today we're going to interview Dr. Mark Cucuzzella from the Natural Running Center in West Virginia, and Mark also, besides being a family practitioner and a partner in a running shoe business out there in West Virginia, is quite a runner. You know, I think his PR for the marathon is 2:24, and I met Dr. Cucuzzella at a symposium I attended in Boulder, Colorado some years back, and he was presenting on the whole aspect of natural running when it was basically a fairly new concept in this country. And you know, a lot of this stuff, I got to tell you, I give credit where credit's due, falls on you know, the advent of this book, or Born to Run, with from Christopher McDougall. And you know, I read the book, and a lot of the book was kind of cool at first, and you know, it kind of slowed down for me after a while, and I tended to not love the book after a while, but he did you know, drop some interesting information on us, and I think to some degree we have to give him credit for the revolution, or what they'd like to refer to as the re-evolution of natural running. But Dr. Cucuzzella is, in my mind, one of the most, what do I want to say? He's an expert in the field of natural running. He's spent more time researching it, and he travels around doing clinics, symposiums. He writes about it. He practices it. Incidentally, there's a YouTube that circulates, or a video that circulates on YouTube, showing him running down the road barefoot. And I have to tell you, I have some friends, as you know, and I know, that are barefoot runners. Never seen anybody run so efficiently, quickly on pavement barefoot before. This guy.
I'll have to check that out. Really? Well, I'm not surprised knowing his PR, but I'm certain he didn't run his marathon barefoot, but
you know, he may have run one or two. I don't know. We're going to find out. But
really?
I can tell you, and you know me, and we've always said it, and just to be clear for the audience, I'm not really a fan of trying to run barefoot on unnatural surfaces. I absolutely believe that we need to have some protection for our feet. And, you know, here we are in our later stages of life, identifying that we do better if we get barefoot more often, structurally, strengthening our feet, improving our posture. But, you know, it came along late. I mean, we didn't grow up running around barefoot like the Kenyans did. We don't fare well when we try to, you know, go out and run 5 or 6 miles on the concrete or pavement. Not to mention what you may encounter when you're out there: nails, broken glass, stone, whatever. So, you know, I heard the argument made once that if everything was going well for you and you didn't have any issues running barefoot on concrete or pavement, all you need is one time where maybe you step on a nail, and potentially you could be out for months recovering from that type of an injury. So even the risk associated with it is probably, in my opinion, not worth the trouble. I think you need to have some protection on your feet. But anyway, I really, really respect the work that Dr. Cucuzzella does, and, you know, just some interesting stuff, because you know and I know that even on paper, the physics behind the rationale for moving to a more midfoot style of running does not come without its potential pitfalls. I mean, we have people that transition either because of errors in the way they approach the work or overuse, end up hurting themselves.
Right.
And so, you know, it's easy to lose faith when, you know, you go out there and try something new and you end up causing yourself some grief.
Right.
And, you know, reverting back to old school style of running and saying, well, you know, screw it, I just, not for me. And, you know, and I mean, how many people do you know have gone that way?
Well, you know, the people, yes, a handful. But the people that do make it over that hump and stick to it that I know have never, ever reverted back to heel striking, ever. So if you can endure, right, and just stick with it, I don't know anybody that would go back. Have fun.
Well, and I have to tell you that, and I think I mentioned it last time around we talked, but we're doing a gait analysis for one of my clients, and you know, I was almost apologetic for the fact that I knew that, you know, for him to shift at his age, he was going to start experiencing some soreness in the calf muscles, and potentially, if he ever did it, he would strain himself. And he said, hey, look, he goes, that's fine. He goes, I'll take a little bit of strain and soreness in my Achilles over knee injury any time. He said, because guess what? Cartilage doesn't heal. He goes, muscle and tendon heals. Cartilage doesn't come back. And it was just really amazing. You know, I'm going to grab Mark. He just looks like he just came on. So talk to the people for me there, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, listening to Richard say that, and even if you took out the mechanics of what he was saying, ligaments and how the body works and knee pain and what have you, but if you can look at the big picture of running, as I often do with my own training and listening to my body, that if it took, you know, a month or 2 months or 3-4 months even to make that transition with a little bit of discomfort, then I would opt for that rather than not being able to run when I'm 70, 80, 85 years old. So I don't know Richard's client and how old he was, but I would guess to say that he chose to go through the transition of changing his form in scope of the big picture, because you know, a little bit of discomfort now, like he said, will take you through. I know that the joy that I find in running, that if I didn't make those changes and, you know, 10 years down the road was laid up because of a knee surgery, as opposed to 2 or 3 months of some tight calves or Achilles, gosh, I would be grateful that I made that change. I find such joy and rejuvenation in running, as I'm certain most people that come to Richard do, whether they're injured already or hoping to keep that injury off. So I'm eager to hear from Mark. And
it's going to happen right now, Erica.
Oh, wonderful.
Hey, you know what? We're getting busy. Looks like I got another caller on the line, but Erica, I want to introduce you to Dr. Mark Cucuzzella. Mark, this is Erica Grattan.
Erica, pleasure to meet you.
Good morning,
I'm going to
Doctor.
while you guys chat a little bit. I want to find out who's on the other line. I'll be right back.
Sure. Well, welcome. I am all ears. Cannot wait to hear about your journey. I know we share a lot of the same philosophies, the three of us, and I got some time to peruse your website, and would love to hear anything that you'd like to impart upon us all. So,
cool. Is this mostly kind of Q&A from the call-ins, or just give me a little bit of format on the show and what the best flow is?
Well, when we get some calls, we'll take those in whichever direction they lead us. But I'd love if you'd like to start us out with just telling our audience a little bit about you. I know we told them how speedy you are, and your correct me if I'm wrong. Your marathon PR was 2:24. Is that correct?
Several moons ago, but yeah.
Oh my goodness!
46.
Really? Wow. And
Mark, I'm back on with you here, and I would love for you, and it's been a little while since I heard the story, but did you not come up with a bit of an injury and then, kind of have this whole transitional experience? Can you share that information with us?
Yeah, and that's probably kind of how all this stuff kind of started and evolved. And so about the year 2000, I ran competitive in college and kept running afterwards as just part of sanity with a busy life, and competed in marathons a couple a year. Got my time down to the mid-220 range, and was hurt. Probably like almost everyone out there who's tuned into this show, they probably have some reason to be coming to it. They're trying to find an answer. So, but I thought that was just normal because we were all hurt at that time. I knew nothing about running form and footwear. I mean, no coaches were talking about this stuff when I was in school. And at about the year 2000, I was just struggling with all kinds of injuries. My feet were hurting, and we had a good podiatrist there at the academy that really was into sports stuff, and he shot an X-ray of my feet, and I had all these arthritis changes in my big toe especially, had no mobility. That joint was really damaged. It was bent. Osteophytes, which are bone spurs, so it couldn't roll off of the toe. And I didn't really have pain in that toe. Everything was compensating everywhere else. And I think as we go through this a little bit today, what's important is understanding kind of where we feel discomfort, and the fact that someone may not be, quote, hurting doesn't mean that they shouldn't try to run in a better way, because joints, for example, don't really feel discomfort until they're pretty far damaged. And, as people are wearing their knees and hips away and feeling all happy doing that, one day they walk into your office and they don't have any joint left. And then that's a real running injury, in my opinion, because you can't just do a little bit of rehab for that. That's damage done. So this is 2000. They operated on my toes, kind of cleaned up the bone, got some more mobility there. And, the conventional wisdom then was, knucklehead, and look what running does. It's not good for you. Stop running. And, probably like Erica and Richard, you all are busy people. And, I was at the Air Force Academy in this beautiful place, and that was my kind of way of peace, was getting out at lunch and running. So a few months after that, I started to look into, really how the East Africans were running. I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this, because, I'm not in pain anymore. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to run. I mean, I dealt with soldiers coming back from war without legs who were running. So what's a little bit of toe arthritis? So at that time, I started to understand a little bit about footwear, because none of the East Africans really wore much on their feet. And at that time, I used racing flats. It was all that was there. And I was given lectures at University of Colorado in the early 2000s, and I'd show slides of my shoe, which you could kind of roll up in a ball, But most of them had some heel elevation. I didn't know anything about drop or any of that stuff. I'd studied ski running and the different methods at that time, just to kind of see what people were writing about, and played with all kinds of stuff. But I got well. I also slowed down. One of the most profound books anyone can read is Phil Maffetone's book. It's called The Big Book of Endurance Training and Racing. Understanding exercise physiology, that you actually get faster by running slow. So I started playing with all this stuff, and started running marathons again in the mid-220s. Off of minimal training, easier recovery, less effort, just kind of figured it out.
Right.
And the footwear stuff kind of evolved because, I was sponsored at that time. Brooks Sports was my running sponsor, and they knew I was a doc and interested in all this stuff, so they started kind of looping me into some of the design stuff and had shoes sent to me from this guy, really probably the smartest guy in the field at that time. His name was Trip Allen, and he had come over from Nike, was the lead design guy at Nike, and brought over to Brooks, and he understood the drop principle. He understood that a foot should be flat. I didn't get that, but he started sending me shoes that were leveled off, designs that he had, but, companies weren't ready yet to make them zero drop, so he just would cut the heel off, and he said, just run in these things and let me know what you think. Don't think too much about it, just run in them. And it was like immediately I got it, because I was running in proper form, and the heel just got in the way, and now that I finally had something flat, so I had numerous pairs of Brooks Burns T5s, that were just leveled out. It's pretty simple. If any of y'all out there have a favorite shoe with 12 millimeters of drop, just get a hacksaw to it.
Hack it off.
yeah, just hack it off. You can save some cash as your transition, or hack it down to 8 millimeters and then grind it down a couple months later to 4.
And then, right.
Yeah, then you don't have to buy 12 more pairs of shoes. I own a shoe store, so why am I telling you that? But yeah, just the truth. So
between us, anyway.
Mark, while I'm sitting here thinking about it, I do have somebody else on the line, and
sure.
This gentleman is a pretty decent runner in his own right. I actually coach him, and he is now experiencing some problems with his feet. They first suspected a stress fracture, and I think the second met, and now they're expecting that possibly there's a neuroma. Now, I watched this guy running, and by the way, we transitioned him from heels to midfoot running recently. And as a matter of fact, the race I was training for was a 10-miler, and he likes to run long. He's done Boston. He's done several marathons, and he won this race overall. It was a local race. He did it 59 minutes, but I've been really having a hard time getting him to drop his heel at the conclusion of his foot contact, and so he's staying up on his toes a little bit.
Wow.
So I think this is where the stress has evolved. But then he turned around, and I'm going to throw him under the bus a little bit. I apologize, and Crispin, forgive me. But next thing you know, I see him on Facebook with these what are they called, hookahs? These really, really big-soled shoes. And essentially, I told him, I said, you just decided to strap some mattresses to your feet, and I'm not terribly convinced that that's the solution. Crispin, I want to introduce you to Dr. Mark Cucuzzella. This is Crispin Lazaret. Say hello, Crispin, and tell him what your problem is, Crispin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, I guess the problem is right at the second metatarsal, and it's a sharp pain. And every time I apply any form of pressure to it, I feel sort of like a pinched nerve, or if sort of like I'm rolling on something like a little pebble over that second metatarsal whenever I'm walking, running. So obviously the only thing that seems to help is running on cushioned shoes, sort of to prevent that intense pressure.
Yeah, and certainly whenever I get an email or a phone call about a specific symptom, just as kind of a disclosure, it's almost impossible to evaluate that, because why something's happening is so much different than like where the pain is. So without seeing you run, seeing your foot, it's hard to give you any more specifics, just other than some generalities of movement mechanics and what you want to load and unload. So one of the main problems we see in almost all runners, they stress fracture and get neuromas in second and third metatarsal, sometimes the fifth, never the first. The first metatarsal and the big toe in your foot are designed to take the load. So that's really where your arch is structured in the great toe. Arches are supported by the ends. So having a really strong and correctly positioned great toe and being able to stabilize and run off of your big toe unloads a lot of the other areas. And that can be practiced by doing simple things such as single leg balance, and trying to keep your body, just amazingly still, because you'll feel the weight go onto that big toe. Now, as soon as that arch tends to weaken, you tend to roll to the outside of the foot and to an area of the foot that's not designed to take the load. We're pretty smart design. I've asked podiatrists the same thing. Have you ever seen a first metatarsal stress fracture? And the answer across the board is no, because that's the bone that's designed to take the load. So having someone where you live who's really expert in full kinetic chain analysis, not just, okay, here's the pain in your foot, let's inject it with something. Now, of course, if you have like a neuroma, which is really a trauma type of impact type of injury to a nerve sheath, so certainly you can treat the symptom by cushioning it more, but ultimately you want to restructure the strength of the foot so you're not loading that area. So what you do to try to make yourself feel better is one thing, but ultimately you want to get the foot strong. Now, the Hokas probably do have a role. Shoe's a tool. So, I'm not telling people to all chuck their shoes and go run barefoot on streets. It's the farthest thing of what I'm teaching people in clinics and in the store. But, so the Hoka is actually fairly flat. It doesn't have a large heel elevation. And I kind of think of it like almost like a downhill mountain bike. You can get a little reckless with it, but your uphill mountain bike is different, So you see those big, beefy, shocked mountain bikes to go down the mountains. And, it works because you can just slam into the ground, and you're not going to feel it. Now, as a transition, as you're strengthening your foot, if it allows you to run, sure, you're out there running, and that's what's good for your general health and preventing heart attacks. So we just want people out there running without pain in a proper posture, which, the most important thing is just getting flat to the ground, not in an elevated heel. You can run in good form, really, with any shoe that's flat. I don't know if that helps, but I would try to get yourself evaluated about, how are you landing and loading, and then do you have a foot, big toe deviation is probably huge here. So when I look at people in clinics, I'd say about 20 to anywhere up to 40% have what's called hallux valgus. That's where the big toe points in, which is purely a problem with shoes because they start to point your toes, from a young age. If you have that problem, the only solution is actually a product I wear all the time. It's called Correct Toes. It's a toe spacer because my toe's still deviated 20 degrees, and I can't load the big toe if it's crooked. It's like the front of the arch is gone. So I wear these toe spacers, and they were just featured in Running Times, the December issue. You can see a picture of them there. But they keep your toes spread out, and it's magic because you can actually learn to load your first toe again. So I'm kind of a roundabout answer, but that's probably the best I can do on the phone.
Because I have some inside information here. I work with, Crispin sends me his data through Training Peaks. And the problem with Crispin is he's hell-bent to try to find a way to run while he's sleeping. The guy doesn't rest. And so he's just not getting enough recovery.
Maybe not a good thing.
And I'm telling you.
Long-term running, just between us.
Yeah, so what he's done is he's trying to find a way to keep running while he's hurt. And I keep telling him I need him to take some time off. Any thoughts about...
again, there's never a simple answer. So rest is never the cure for anything either. So every injury is really an equation of load and capacity, to make it ridiculously simple. So all of our structures have a certain capacity to sustain whatever load we place on it. And if you, overload that capacity, you're going to get hurt. Now, certainly the goal of training is to increase the capacity to take stress. So complete rest just lowers our capacity. Add too much load, you're going to get hurt no matter how perfect you do it. So you have to find, if you have an injury, you have to figure out what's going on, why do you have it, what's weak, train for your weakness, strengthen that up. It's not as simple as take this pill. It's not like you just got some headache, you had a little too much grog on a Friday night and you wake up Saturday and you're just feeling like crud and you want to get out of bed. But I think we all know that symptom treatment of running injuries doesn't work. It's different.
Right.
But I'm not sure out there in SoCal who your best evaluators. I know there's a gentleman, Jeff Marino, I think, is out there. He's a physical therapist who's really good. I think he's in Southern Cal. Could look him up.
What was I going to ask you? Now, so I'm going to go back to injuries a little bit more. So we've been having a lot of. I should share with you that Crispin was essentially one of the faster runners on my team. We had about 25 runners, and it was kind of an experiment. So there was about a 4-month period of time that I had these folks to prepare them for an event. And we did a video analysis on everybody day one, VO2 max test, resting metabolic assessment. A whole gamut of assessments we did on them. And everybody that was on the team, save maybe one or two, were heel strikers. And within that timeline, we converted all of them to midfoot runners. And the bulk of them came through it pretty well. They, minimal amount of stress associated with, loading up the calf and Achilles. But we had a few of them that they got down, they were down. They strained themselves because they tend to be pretty good athletes anyway. They push themselves a little harder than they should. And I'm sure you get this question asked of you a lot. But my question to you is, what is your best advice for people that are making that transition? And maybe a couple points in respect to having the faith to carry it off.
Yeah, so again, simply just the best advice on how to make a transition to different running style, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot that goes into it because video analysis, for one, is a very limited tool. All you can see is what's called kinematics, meaning you can see motion, but you really can't see force, and you can't see muscle activation, and spring really is what running is. Running is storing and releasing energy. So there are plenty of people that land gently on their heel that actually load correctly under their center of mass and have a nice, strong, stable stride. And people may look at them in a video camera and say, heaven forbid you're a heel striker, fix that. And there are also people that might land in a nice, pure midfoot landing, but be very unstable in their landing, have very weak hips, have all kinds of dysfunction. Because mid-stance is when the most force goes through your body. So 2.5 to 3 times your body weight, gets imposed to your spine and everywhere, 1,200 times a mile. But the peak force is mid-stance, not landing. So if you look at all those curves, Lieberman's curves, so the heel hitter has this immediate impact transient, this sharp spike of deceleration, but then there's the second peak, which is mid-stance. Everyone lands and everyone pushes off the ground to get off the ground. So without forces, it's hard to make any real conclusion. So back to how you transition, so I kind of look at it like this. There's form, there's strength, and then there's spring. So train the form, which is teach yourself not to land with your foot out in front of you, overreaching. So really, if you're looking at a video analysis, the foot on landing shouldn't be ahead of the knee. It's not so much whether the forefoot hits or the heel hits. Now, there are plenty of people that toe step, and I think you mentioned with Christian, like his heel doesn't come down. That's sprinting. No one can sustain that. Everyone's heel has to come down, or else it's going to be massively fatiguing, and it's going to load the foot in this extreme way. The foot's really it's like a leaf spring. It's got to come down both edges of the arch, which are the front edge and the back edge, and the arch collapses, which is a good thing because it springs back. So the heel, just like you're jumping rope, the heel has to come down. So you have to assess, how that person's landing. In running, before we talk about how you transition, let's just talk about what it is. So, and where the injuries start. So most people, in not just running, but any jumping sport, most people don't know how to land. And that's the problem. They all take off just fine, and they don't know how to land. They land really hard, or they land really mushy, with a very weak system. And that's where the marshmallow shoe interferes, because they can't stabilize. They hit the ground, they can't feel the ground, get no proprioception, and they can't stabilize. So the Running Times article that Jay Deshary and I did in April, I think, is a good one to look at the kinetic chain and your own self-assessment. So can you stand on one leg? Can you close your eyes and stand on one leg? Are you stable? If you're not, practice that all day. So part of transitioning is getting that balance, all day. So get off your duff at your desk chair and get a stand-up desk. Things that are going to help you there. Now, to train the spring, so if you watch any East African or kid run, it's all about the spring, meaning storing and releasing energy. So, I teach a lot of these really light and easy and fun plyometric type drills, lateral jumps, really low-level box jumps. I'm not talking about, like what they do in a CrossFit gym with some 20-something. I do box jumps just from stair height, one stair, pop, 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 just quickly landing softly, make no noise, doing lateral hops, jumping rope, kind of waking up that spring, so strength, spring, and then you progress, so get the skill set down first, the motor skill, and then you progress in the strength. You're going to start adding a little more volume, a little more height if you're doing some jumps, but, get someone to assess your pattern first, your stability first. Getting out of an elevated heel should be a process, not an event. So I think thinking about it no other way than that. It's not an event like today I'm going to chuck my big bulky shoe and go barefoot. No, it's a process because the human body can't adapt any quicker than it's designed to. You cause a little injury every time you do a training effect, right? I mean, that's what it is. And you get better by recovery. It takes 48 to 72 hours for fascia to recover. So this is just basic science, and if you understand this, it helps you be your own coach. So when you're getting out of an elevated heel and you're doing some jumpy type drills, jump ropes, even 3 minutes of that, the next day you're going to be a little sore. And that's actually a good thing. Just like you went to the gym the first day, okay, I'm a little sore. I just woke something up that wasn't activated before. But, okay, I'm not going to hit it again tomorrow. Let that recover. 48 to 72 hours. You just can't fool, the body's repair recovery process. I think if you, used one little story or analogy, it's, the Milo the Greek wrestler. Someone gave him a calf when he was a boy, and every day he picked the calf up. Every day he picked the calf up. And I don't know how many years later, it's a Greek story, but, eventually he walks into the Olympic arena carrying a bull. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
There's no shortcut. Think of, I just look at my own, I didn't know anything about this stuff in the mid-2000s. Born to Run wasn't written yet. There wasn't even a word minimalist shoes, and I was in racing flats for 5 years before I even leveled a shoe out. Then I started flattening shoes, and then ultimately someone asked me to do a talk on barefoot running. So at the Boston Marathon, they asked me to do a talk on barefoot running, and I was like, well, I don't run barefoot. I run in skinny shoes. Well, we want you to do a talk anyway. So I chucked my shoes and started to learn barefoot. But that wasn't an event either. I'd carry them, run for half mile without the shoes, put the shoes back on. That was another whole year process just to do that. So,
have you run a marathon barefoot?
I haven't. I do a lot of road training and grass training, long runs barefoot. I honestly think, if you look at the marathons I run, I run Boston every year, and I want to run it fast. I run Boston, and this year I was 2:46, but it was 90-plus degrees, and everyone had a slower day. But you can get more reckless in a shoe, and you can go faster in a shoe because you can just let it go. If you have a firm shoe, because if you're racing, you're applying more force into the ground, so you are a little faster in a shoe, especially, think of most city streets. It's all about texture of the road. There's grit, there's potholes, there's rocks. I've run 10Ks and 5Ks barefoot and probably do just as well as with shoes in those type of events, but a marathon is so different. Now, if I just wanted to go out and do one for yucks and it was a nice smooth road and wasn't really racing it, I might jump into one barefoot. But people want to make this argument, and the New York Times had an article about it that last week, and everyone's like saying, well, look at this article. It says shoes are better. And it's like, well, barefoot's not about what's better or worse. It's just what it is. It has a purpose to strengthen the foot. It's not about speed.
Right.
That's not what it is. So everyone should get in tune with, their body and how to strengthen their foot. It's not like, well, the shoe's faster, therefore it's better. They're different. I don't think people understand. If you talk to a true barefooter, they don't even want to get into these debates because clearly these people don't get it. Like, no barefooter will make the argument that the reason they run barefoot is to run faster.
Oh, they don't.
No, they want to run healthy, and they want to have fun, and they want to play, meaning play, no outcome, in the moment. It is really fun. I just got back from an hour-and-a-half run on a golf course before this call in my bare feet, and it had poured rain last night, and there were puddles, and if I had shoes, they would have been gnarly within the first 100 yards, but I'm just, like, finding every single puddle I could and jumping right in it.
Yeah.
That's fun, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, Mark, last week we interviewed Craig Virgin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a name from the past, huh?
Oh my gosh, you know, a true legend. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I sought him out because
it was. Do you have those recorded?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
If you go to iTunes and just pull up Natural Running Network Live,
okay.
The whole library of episodes we've done is there, and you'll see it says an American legend, Craig Virgin.
Wow.
But I sought him out because I knew that when he was establishing his American record for the 10,000 meters and World Cross Country Championships, this was back before the advent of all these, what I like to call the dark era of construction of shoes. And so back then, most of those guys, they ran off their midfoot simply because it was more in line with the way their body reacted to being in a flat shoe. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, all those guys, if you watch footage of them back in the day, you know, Rogers, Frank Shorter, Craig Virgin, you know, because they all wore, you know, Craig, he was one of my idols when I was a young kid running. You know, he had those, he would always wear those skinny Adidas marathon shoe. It was like a blue one. And, you know, when he was running, you know, he won multiple World Cross Country Championships, and, you know, they'd always have the thin spike. But, oh, yeah, all those folks, Pat Porter, you know, they were all, it wasn't about forefoot or heel. They were springy runners. You know, they ran in an elastic pattern. You know, they didn't overstride. I mean, they were just, and they, you know, they knew how to use their glutes. You know, they knew how to drive, you know. So when you're putting the, you know, those guys put the hammer down, you know, it's all about understanding glute function, you know, and whether they knew they were doing that or not, they were doing that because their body never learned anything different.
Well, that was
interesting.
I'd
be curious, was he just a really active kid? Was he one of these kids that just was, you know, running all over the place, and then finally someone put a pair of track spikes on him? Because I know
that was the interesting thing about the interview.
Records.
He was sickly. When he was a young boy, he was sickly. He almost died. He had a problem with it was a congenital disorder. What was it that it was a urological problem he had. He was actually he almost died from it, and he was pigeon-toed. He had he was making jokes about how, you know, he was such a sex machine going to school. He had braces on his feet. He had braces on his teeth, and he couldn't see very well. He had thick glasses, and then he was sick. And then he kind of came through all that, and he actually has since had a kidney transplant, or removed, I want to say. But what a fascinating story that guy is.
He's still out in St. Louis, I know. He showed up he gave a couple talks at the U.S. Cross Country Championships last year, which was in St. Louis. I got to run the geezer division with some friends, and that was fun.
He told us, well, actually I researched it, but he bore out the truth that he blew a 92 VO2 score.
Yeah, him and Prefontaine, I believe it. they were the real deal. Yeah.
It was pretty wild. And actually he said when he did that VO2, it wasn't at his peak fitness. He said that he would have liked to have done the test earlier when he was in better shape. But I just thought it would have been cool to get him on and talk about, you know, his running experience. And most of what he did was just instinctive. He was self-coached. He never had anybody teach him how to run. He just ran, and you know, it worked out for him. And I think that was probably the case with a lot of the guys back then.
Well, you know, Richard,
talked to Rod Dixon too, who was another one back in the day. So I got to speak with Rod Dixon, you know, who's New Zealand medalist and New York Marathon champ, and probably ran against Craig. But yeah, he would just he's like, oh yeah, we all used to just run in these skinny shoes. You know, that's, you know, he was from New Zealand, but I think they all kind of share a similar background when they started, and you know, when they were all running well, they would where these gum rubber shoes, all of Lydiard's boys in New Zealand, they were like, Keds, that type of shoe. That's what they did all their 20-mile runs in. That's all they had.
Yeah.
So I'm on your site, and I'm looking at a wealth of information on your site, incidentally. Very well done.
Thank you. Bill Cucuzzella is kind of the brainchild behind all that. I just throw some content in, but he connects and gets all these articles posted.
You mentioned Phil Maffetone. I did a workshop with Phil Maffetone. How long ago was that? Must have been about 12 years ago, something like that, in Las Vegas. And what we did is, he was talking about minimal running back then, and quite frankly, I thought he was crazy. I mean, I'm sitting there, listening to him. We were kind of co-presenting at this health club, the Las Vegas Athletic Clubs. There was they have a sea of members between their clubs, and I think they have like close to 100,000 members. But anyway, the presentation was for their trainers, and I think there was probably 50 or 60 trainers in the room. Mm-hmm. But he was talking about how he recommended to his clients to wear as minimal a shoe as possible. And there was a lady in the room who was, I don't know, she had to be 70 years old. And he had her in some racing flats because, again, back then there wasn't really anything else that was that neutral a format, and had her running marathons that way. And I'm looking at him going, man, are you out of your mind? And then the whole topic about heart rate, and I brought my metabolic cart with me, and we did a comparative analysis. He had his theory about the 180 subtract your age thing, and we just checked it. I tested probably. I'm sorry.
Yeah, against your kind of where your RER, your kind of break point was between fat.
Yeah, we were looking for the anaerobic threshold relative to his equation. And, I looked at it clinically versus his equation. I found that he was pretty tight. It was pretty close on most of it. I would say that, I don't recall exactly, but I'd say about 7 out of 10 times he was pretty close. But I almost felt like I needed to write him a letter and apologize for my thought. I didn't tell him I thought that he was crazy, but I was thinking it when he was talking about minimal running. And here we are now, looking at it again and going, wow, he was right.
Send me, I'd be glad to reconnect you with him because he's helping me with various projects. Because, he was ahead of his time, really going back to the very basic science of mitochondrial metabolism and aerobic metabolism and fat-burning metabolism. He understood it, and he understood that to get faster you got to run slow. And his formula, for the audience, what this is you go, it's about 180 minus your age, and that's not your anaerobic threshold. That's what's called your aerobic threshold. So all of us have this kind of magic line where we mix from more of a hybrid mode of economy, meaning fats and sugars. It's like a hybrid car. You'll get a lot of miles per gallon, and if you go a little too fast, you're all sugars. And by being in that lower zone, you start to build capillaries, build mitochondria, do all the magic that Lydiard's runners did 50 years ago, doing 80 to 100-mile weeks to run 2 laps of the track. So, but what's great about his formula is it's a very simple, safe place to start. So it doesn't, like if you have a recreational runner and they cannot go do a lactate threshold, they can't, they'll crack. They don't even know how to run to do something to bring them up to that speed. So you start from the bottom up and you just build it from there so that anyone can apply this formula and start running and get better. And, I used it when I was recovering from these surgeries, and it was phenomenal how it worked. I was 30 at the time, put the heart rate monitor on, and I was running a 9-minute pace at a heart rate of 150. And kind of old type A would have been like, forget that. This is a waste of time. But I was drinking the Kool-Aid because I read about the physiology. And so the next month I'm running an 8-minute mile at a heart rate of 150. A couple months later, a 7-minute mile at a heart rate of 150. Then lined up for the Marine Corps Marathon in the year 2000 off of really no traditional training, so to speak, meaning intervals and all that stuff, and ended up running a 2:28 for third place. But what was wild about it was when I hit the finish line, I felt like I could do it again. It was totally different, because I built a system that, Mark Allen is probably the most famous one who's written about, how this transformed his career. everyone remembers Mark because he won 6 straight Ironman triathlons, but the real story is he lost 6 straight to Dave Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was like, I'm done, and he's like, well, my last chance here, I'll call this shaman, Phil Maffetone. I hear he helps people, so, he calls up Phil, and, he's like, okay, I'm listening. And,
I used to produce triathlon. I was actually the director of the first pro triathlon that was put on the island of Kauai for CBS Sports in 1984. And all those guys participated in that. I used to also own the Maui Triathlon, and Mark Allen, Scott Tinley Molina, all those guys participated in my event back then. But I was kind of around that era, and I remember all that going down. I remember, as a matter of fact, one of the other people that we're kind of tight with is Matt Fitzgerald, who just wrote the book Iron Wars. Have you read that?
I haven't.
You got to read it.
There's a lot of controversy between those two guys about that book and the liberties that were taken. So I've read Mark Allen's book about what's the name of it? It's about your soul that he wrote with a shaman he had met. But that's a great book.
Yeah, it's I know that book. It'll come to me.
Yeah, I know that Mark Allen and Dave Scott were extremely angry about the outcome of that book. And, I won't go into the detail, but the inside track was it didn't end well.
It's called Fit Soul, Fit Body. That's what it is.
It's a great book.
It is.
Suggested for everyone.
I'm good friends with Matt Fitzgerald, and I thought the book was good. I thought the book was really, really good. And it was interesting, the parallel between Dave Scott being basically a hammerhead, just go out there. His attitude was catch me if you can. And Mark, who was laying back, looking at the science and trying to do all the right things. And ultimately, it paid off for him. And I'm absolutely a very, very devout advocate of heart rate specific training. And most of the programs that I write for training are relative to heart rate. And at the end of the day, that's the best feedback I think you can get in respect to how your body is responding to the work you're doing. I don't know how you feel about that, because I've actually got into some, a little bit of a banter back and forth with Fitzgerald, who is pretty much interested in the mechanics of running and how you feel and perceptive efforts. And I don't know. I think perception sometimes can get you in a lot of trouble. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been using a heart rate monitor on and off since about 2000. And when I first used it, I had no clue. I had no real intuitive biofeedback. I didn't know what easy was in the physiologic way. Just like if I'm working with a Marine and I'm telling them to run easy, to a Marine, easy is like one step below death or one step ahead of the guy next to him. So now I don't need it because I know down to the nickel what my effort is, not speed, my pace, i.e. effort, and what I'm trying to accomplish that day. But we've used them, a ton here in my small community. So, for example, high school kids as a group, we use them all the time because they don't know how to recover. And our kids have won 4 straight state championships. So they put them on in the summer and on recovery days, especially the younger runners, because they'll want to run with the group. And the seniors kind of churning along at a heart rate of 150 on a recovery day, but the freshman is up at like 180. And if that's their recovery day, that kid is not going to make it to the state meet. They're going to be fried. So how long does it take someone to get, now Lydiard's principles are make running feeling-based, and that's your ultimate goal. In the day of Lydiard, he would just tell his runners, well, today's a 3/4 effort day, today's a half effort day. But his runners knew exactly what that meant because they had a one-to-one mentor. They just got it. But most people don't yet have that. So I think everyone can learn a ton by just putting one on and just seeing okay, I think I'm going easy, but if your body is not saying easy, you're not training the right system. And all training is to create adaptations. What is the adaptation you're trying to make? It's train, don't strain. So if you don't get that, all you're doing every day is to try to put yourself through some stress. That's not training. The opposite is true. You want to create just enough stress to make whatever adaptation that is. Then you're going to run into the nursing home. Every day in my, it's not even training, but, every run I do, if I don't feel like I could turn around and do it again, it was too hard. And that's the truth. Now, race day a couple days a year, I'll probably leave it on the line, and I couldn't turn around and do it again. But all of your training should lead up to, that 1 or 2 race days a year that, the marathons or some, day that it's actually a peak performance kind of day. But if you did it every weekend, long runs, and until you're going to drop, you'll never make it to the line.
I tell people that I'm very curious to know, had Lydiard had an opportunity to employ heart rate and have a way to monitor heart rate with his people, whether he would have done it. I'm sure he would have just been beside himself with glee having a chance to see what's going on heart rate-wise.
Yeah, hard to know. I mean, you could probably ask like Lorraine Moeller or Nobi Hajizume, the folks who knew him. He was kind of anti-technology, but he may have wanted to prove his principles, but he wouldn't have become a slave to it. He would have used it to say, okay, this is what three-quarter effort is. I want you to run three-quarter effort, and now you know what it is. Throw the heart rate monitor away. But he was very anti-technology, but because there was no technology. He did hill springs, and now people are doing, kind of fancy, plyometric type of stuff. But his hill bounding was basically what people do to build this resiliency in their Achilles tendon and all the fascia. You watch videos of the runners just springing up and down hills, but they did that before they hit the track, because if they didn't do that before they hit the track, they'd get hurt. Right. So they had to train their fascia. I mean, everything he did, he experimented. Now science catches up, but, just experience works, so it worked, and the runners never got hurt, and he tried things himself, and that's kind of how it ended up.
Right.
So are you still what I would refer to as racing, or are you just kind of recreationally running now?
I mean, I think racing's a loose term. I'm in the Air Force, and I'll go run Marine Corps Marathon next week. So I guess it's racing. I mean, I'd like to get on the monkey bars like anyone else. I'll get out there and I'll give it my go. And I won the age 45 division there last year, and if I have a good day, hopefully run under 240. And as a 46-year-old person with about 6 jobs, I'm okay with that. But in my life, it's the reset. So, I mean, everything else is stress, stress, stress. So the running takes that nice kind of happy place in the day, that play space. But, a couple times a year, it's fun being part of a team. I go run the Boston Marathon representing the Air Force, and that's just such a fun event to do. And I've done it 20 years, and I'll keep doing that as long as, I keep getting into it. But, yeah, it's just fun. So it is fun to race. I'm not one of these habitual racers. I'll pick out a few marathons a year, Air Force Marathon. I won that outright last year at age 45. This year came back. There were some younger guys that didn't win it this year, but still, it's good. It's the process, I think, that's healthy. I think if you look at the literature too, racing ultras and marathons too frequently is bad for your health. I mean, that's not rocket science either. It's too much stress. I mean, we're designed as humans to move happily, not to go race marathons every weekend. That's not human design. So get on the monkey bars a few times a year if you want, but don't make your life a race. The process has to be mellow.
Can you just give us a broad stroke opinion in respect to this whole movement, the natural running movement? Can you because there's people that I'm sure out there that are going to listen to this that are kind of on the fence and trying to make a decision as to whether or not this is something they want to entertain, whether they're going to make a transition from landing on their heels. What is your broad stroke feeling and take on people that are running now that are still heel striking? Do you think they should move, or what's your feeling?
I mean, I think everyone should learn to run in the way the body's designed to run. There's no brand of this. It's not, I don't know what natural running means. It's just running. If you watch our video on our website, Principles of Natural Running, it kind of defines what it is. But our body's designed to take forces in specific directions, in specific planes, and learn how to run in the way we're designed to run, which is not reaching out in front and having this massive impact loading to your kinetic chain. If you don't run that much, it's probably not going to cause you that much harm. But if you're going to put in a significant volume of running, or you just want to be more comfortable running, there is, like any sport or movement, there's a proper movement pattern. You know, if you're going to play golf or swim, there's an efficient moving pattern, and learn it. You know, it doesn't matter if you're hurt or not hurt. Learn that pattern, and it becomes more efficient, and it puts, you know, joint torques in the right place, because ultimately the worst running injury is when you got an uncorrectable problem. You know, I mean, I did. You know, I had fused toes from doing everything wrong, and that wasn't because I was born that way, because I had surgical corrections, fixed my form, and I haven't missed a day of running from an injury since year 2000, since that operation. You know, I think I've got this margin of injury prevention right now. The thought of being hurt doesn't even creep in my mind, you know, other than if I stepped in a big hole or something. But, yeah, there's huge margin, huge buffer to injury, and that's where we all want to be, is there. So, yeah, everyone should learn a better skill, because, you know, we are designed to run. And to make it really simple, I mean, I think people are overcomplicating this. So you just take this as your basic assumptions, and, you know, you can agree or disagree. But if you read the literature, you'd probably be convinced that the human organism, the human body, was designed to run. At some point in natural selection, we needed to run. And every structure in our body makes us a good runner. You know, from ligaments in the back of our neck to how we regulate heat, you know, how we have aerobic metabolism, the shape of our foot, 33 joints in our feet. So everything is designed to make us runners. Now, if we were designed to run, I mean, would you agree that probably somewhere along the way we were designed to run?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, you would think, but some people might say, no, we were designed to build cars, but probably not. That's only a blip of time. So if we were designed to run, then we were probably designed pretty well as is.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, now if it got cold or you sharp surfaces, you had to put something on your foot, but we're probably pretty smart design. Now, if we were designed to run, and we were pretty well designed as is, just like any other animal, I mean, do you think there's some principles about how we're supposed to run that should be applied? Like if you're a bird, you know, everyone's going to flap their wings a little different, but there's a certain pattern to that movement that's going to make you be able to migrate successfully.
Yes.
Yeah, so just learn it. We're all going to look different, so I don't think everyone should try to look like me or look like anyone else, but, you know, these are the muscles that should be activated. This is where you need to be strong. This is where you need range of motion. You know, this is the movement pattern, springy. This is how you do drills, you know, so work your way back there, and none of us will ever get there. You know, we all kind of look for that nirvana, and I've never met an athlete my entire life that couldn't improve. I mean, you all coach. I mean, have you ever met anyone that couldn't get better?
I think that might be me.
Yeah. So you're there. You're at the Holy Grail. But,
no, I mean, I'm wounded. I don't think I'm getting better.
Yeah, but everyone can get better, you know, so people are like, well, I'm not hurt. I'm feeling fine. Yeah, whatever, you know. My encouragement is do it right, and it's not rocket science. This is actually really simple stuff.
Mark, we're about to get closed down here. We've run our time here. Thank you so much for coming on. We really respect and appreciate all your input. And hopefully someday we'll get a chance to do this again and maybe meet again.
No, we will. I hope to get out there to the West Coast sometime if I ever get out there for a course or a clinic.
I'd love to invite you into our place and possibly share a meal with you.
Right
so
on.
I got to shut it down now, folks, before it shuts it down on us. Thanks again. It was a great show. Appreciate having John. Crispin and Erica, thanks a lot for being here with us, and look forward to talking to you guys very soon.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
Well, friends, it's time again to close our show till next week. On behalf of our staff and the community of members, I want to thank you for allowing us into your world. To learn more about us, we invite you to visit us at thenaturalrunningnetwork.com. And if you join us as a prospect member, which is the best way to get access to all of the services that we've come to enjoy, is to let us know who and where you are. We in turn will reach out to you when we have a coach or an event in your area. Our goal is to spread the Natural Running Network across the country and eventually the world. So don't be surprised if one day you learn that we're right in your neighborhood providing services, coaching, and training opportunities that we've come to appreciate. And until next week, thank you for listening, and you have an amazing day.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.